And good afternoon, and welcome to our Gina London LinkedIn Live series. And we're delighted to have Gina with us today. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Sam. Hi, everyone. It's the first one of 2025. Look alive in 2025. How to thrive in 2025. Pick your own rhyme. I'm done, but I am not done supporting and encouraging through LinkedIn. I'm so excited. There have been so many great things that have already happened in 22 days. Not the Trump inauguration. We won't talk about that. But there are so many positive things in value-based leadership, in purposeful connections, in how we can support each other through discussions and shows or programs like this. So thanks, Sam, for making this happen, and I'm really grateful.
Well, we love having you on, Gina. And you know what? Today is quite an important topic because there might be people feeling, actually, I think there are some people feeling a little bit lost at the moment. So let's try and put some positivity
Yeah,
into the room and talk about,
February is the longest month. People joke, but it really does on the calendar have 58 days. Go look at it. Feels exhausting, draining for a lot of people. Many have come back from maybe a full 2 weeks annual leave, and now they're faced with an abundance of things that they put off that now is staring them right in the face in the inbox or wherever. At the first of the year, I was talking to a coaching client earlier today. She wrapped up the year last week, and now she has to do projections and forecasts for this week. I mean, it's just full on. A lot of companies, too, this is a real time of promotions, times of change, growth pushes that they have in organizations where they're encouraging you to go for new positions. So the pressure can be on for people who might not even feel prepared mentally, capability wise, presentation wise to go for that next position. So we want to talk about some of the things that you can do to help yourself be better prepared before the pressure comes on, things you can do during the interview and the follow-up. And my hope is that we can make this as always as relevant and practical and immediately applicable as anything we've talked about. And we do talk about some great things. So, Sam, thanks for bringing this topic forward for today.
we do. So the key to career growth in 2025. Definitely, if you have any questions, if you comment, we are live on Twitter and LinkedIn at the moment. So if you do have any questions, put them into the comments and I will highlight them for Gina and we'll do our best to answer them. So where do we start then, Gina? Okay, so you've gone back to work and maybe perhaps you're thinking of internally. Let's go internally first. What are the must-haves?
Okay, so first of all, let's try to get our mindset in that we don't want to put ourselves in a crunch. And what that means is if you haven't already, it's not too soon, but it's not too late, but it's also not too soon. Start working visibly. Start making on your Google Drive or somewhere a file that you are aware of the political people that you need to know. It's not just your supervisor, it's just not your team leader. It might be that people lead, that talent person, that learning and development person, that leader in a different department. I was in Qatar last week working with talent and people leaders, and the whole concept, and this won't be the first time you've heard of it, but it's important to remember the concept of climbing the ladder in an organization is antiquated because there's great opportunities for learning and for working visibly and for gaining more experience in what they were calling, and I love this, the career lattice. Imagine it spreading out in different directions. So if you go across in a lateral move, but it's a different function, you're going to learn new skills, which then may make you more value, and you might jump up 2 different ladders or 2 different steps. Also, if you are in a large enough organization and you move maybe laterally, but in a different region, think about what you're going to grow and the types of exposure and experience you're going to get that way. So stop thinking, first of all, that there's only one way to progress your career. So start thinking more creatively about how you can take advantage of the learning resources that your organization provides. Now, some of you might be in smaller businesses which don't have it internally provided, but that's why we're here. That's why LinkedIn and their resource and other online platforms like my own little platform, the Gina London Academy, which is available right through, as you see on the ticker tape, my website. You can go there and you can apply right now at your own pace. It's a self-guided progression to help you skill up. So you are working more visibly. You are thinking more proactively. So within your organization, change your mindset on what that means. Start to identify the people that you are going to need to be advocates for you. You can get referrals internally from them, or you can even just pick their brain and understand their experiences. But relationships, relationships, relationships. Yes, deadlines. Yes, work output. Yes, a good attitude. But all of that combined with people knowing you. Sometimes I've had clients say, well, my work should speak for itself, but guess what? It doesn't always. And if there is someone who has the same capabilities as you, and they're going for a promotion and you're in contention as well, but they have worked the room more proactively, not just a popularity contest, but a proactive listening, reaching out, creating relationships, that is going to give that person the competitive edge 90% of the time. Know them before you need them.
That's a great takeaway. Know them before you need them. And that's the same in business as well, isn't it? It really is all about people, Gina. And I know you talk about this a lot. So identifying the advocates you mentioned.
Yeah.
So you're working more visibly and you've identified your advocates. What's next then?
Well, then I would encourage you to put yourself forward even before you think you're officially ready. And we know the statistics that have come from, I think there was this one study that HP did years ago that continues to be talked about as a mantra. And it's something along the lines like men will put themselves forward if they only have self-identified as like 49 or 50% of the requirements, and women wait before they have like 110%. So I don't know how valid that statistic is on its face anymore, but the idea is still the same, which is typically women tend to hold themselves back. And when you think about organizations that are pushing for more equal distribution, especially in senior leadership positions, for the balance of the men and women, then there's probably more opportunity for some women, not less. And that doesn't mean I'm saying or disparaging the capable men who are out there trying as well. The point is, for anybody, when you see a position that you're interested in and you read the requirements internally and you think, I actually don't think I have all of those, I would encourage you, unless it's yards and miles away from where you are, to still put yourself forward, because it does a couple of things. It shows that you've got drive, shows that you're ambitious, shows that you're wanting and eager to stretch. And if you've been doing a good job in the role where you are, even if you don't get it ultimately, you learn from the experience. You've created connections with people through the process along the way, and they're more likely to be watching you now differently. And that's important. In a large organization, it's easy to get overlooked. And so I had a client who shared her story where she put herself forward for a global position and didn't even get through to the second round. But the people who were in that decision-making panel said, we didn't even know you were over in Sweden, where she happened to be. We didn't even know that what the kind of work you were doing, your team were doing. And now we're looking more actively at you. And what happened was amazing. She had been so ready, even though she didn't get to the finals. The person that ultimately got it only lasted 6 months. And so it just happened that she went forward again. And that time she got all the way to the last position. The second person only didn't even end up taking the job, and she got it. So imagine if you hadn't put yourself forward at all, you could still be out there and we don't know you exist land. So I would encourage you not only to put yourself forward for promotions, but put yourself forward for the active, more visible opportunities within your organization. Every week there might be a weekly stand-up. Who wants to share something they learned, or who wants to share a small victory they had? Don't hold back or wait to be called. Put your hand up. Hey, we're going to have a town hall and each department needs to send a representative. Oh, we're going to go to Sam because she's the one that's always up for it. Well, what if no, but I like to use you as my example, Sam, just to see if you're paying attention. But what if Sam doesn't put her hand up, or Sam's happy to share the space? And so that means that George can say, actually, if Sam doesn't mind, I'd love to co-chair with her. I'd love to co-present something, or I'd love to take on board another facet. Please don't wait to be asked. Don't wait to be asked. I was just today, I'm mentoring 2 new college students starting now here in 2025. And one of them I was speaking to, 20 years old. And we were talking about some networking and some ways to start to reach out and try to get an internship. And I'm not betraying a trust when I say that he said, oh, but I think it's too late. We put self-limitations in our heads more times in my experience than reality has for us. It's not too late for him. If you are listening to us right now and you're 45, 55, it's not too late for you. You can get creative. There are new people to meet and new connections to be made all the time. Now, I'm not just talking internally. Now I'm talking about just your sharing of your knowledge and learning from others to potentially advance yourself through a number of different ways. But in particular, if you're a junior employee, do not wait until you are a junior executive or whatever supervisor role you think now entitles you to reach out to other people in different departments or senior leaders. You should start that now.
Yeah. And, it's like you said before, you're needed, self-limitations is a big one, isn't it? And when is it too late? That was so sweet. So what about, let's say I was speaking to somebody recently, actually, and she is brilliant. She really has the drive. She really wants to excel. She really, really wants to go for it. And she just thinks that the person ahead of her is never going to leave. So what would you do in that situation? So let's say there's the next person up where she wants to be.
Yes, that's a great question. And Kareem, I see your comment coming through too. So I want to respond to that. But immediately now to get in what Sam just said, this is why it's important not to look just directly above you. Unless your organization is so small that there's nowhere else to go. And I wrote a column recently in the paper that I write for talking about when do you know it's time to go? And one of those could be if you see there's no future for you and the person that's next in line has no indication of leaving. You can't always wait them out and hope they get an opportunity to move to the Bahamas or something. So you do start to look either in different directions, the lattice that I talked about, to gain experience. Sometimes you have to go out to come back in. We talk about the boomerangs in organizations. A lot of large organizations are supportive of boomerangs, meaning I got a great opportunity externally. I'm going to go take that, but you keep those fires still burning and you don't burn any bridges on your way out. So keep that in mind as well. If you earnestly want to find a way to go higher up in a different direction within your current organization, sometimes going out is the way to come back up even with more responsibility and more impact. That's one. Now to Kareem's point, I absolutely love that he took his experience, if I'm understanding correctly, that when we think about how we talk about our experience, this is something that I also want to work with people. And hi to Lucy, because I see my dear friend Lucy down in Cork, Ireland, who's on the board for a moment. So I want to make sure and give her a spotlight. But for Kareem's question, and it speaks to how we talk about our experience, please get out of the idea that you need to recite your capabilities like a robot, or that you need to recite your past projects like a CV listing of dates, like a history page. This is where ChatGPT can help you be creative if you can't come up with it yourself. The goal is you want to give the narrative, a story of why those projects add to your critical thinking, your collaboration, your team building, your innovative ideating, thinking out of the box. People want to know your attitude and your aptitude.
Yeah.
And telling it just through strict little this experience and this experience, I want to hear the so what. So if you can't come up with it, say to ChatGPT, help me create a story of why I am good for fill in the blank role based on this experience I have so far. And it could be, you might be a mom or a dad who took time off to go be with your children, and now you're coming back to work after a break. And you might think, oh, that has no connection to the work experience or the work job, the job and career that I'm looking for right now. But I guarantee your ability to be patient under pressure, your ability to be organized or learn from not being as organized as you might. There are absolutely applicable skills from a variety of places that might not seem as obvious until you begin to step back a little bit. So that's what's great about ChatGPT. When you use it for these types of crafting, it doesn't come with your emotional baggage. It doesn't know what you're afraid of or what you feel that you're not quite qualified for. So thanks, Kareem, for talking about how do we position our experience to help others see that we are able if we're given the chance.
Okay, so how about externally?
Well, externally is another situation because, of course, the question is, did you come through with the headhunter? Did you come through because you submitted cold? Or did you come through with a referral from another human being? So relationships are always the top way. If someone has recommended you, then that puts you in a different position. And, of course, you want to honor that relationship. That person's putting their neck out for you if they're referring you. And so there's a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces happening right there. I've referred people. I've been referred by people. There's an extra golden opportunity with that. So that's just something to keep in mind, and we'll talk about what you do with it next. If you're coming cold, that's where you really want to have your CV, your cover letter, hit those algorithm sweet spots. Use power words. Go back to ChatGPT. If there's a job description you see, have them help you craft that keyword SEO optimized way to respond, because let's face it, that's part of the filtering process now. So get yourself to the interview. Get yourself to the interview. And there are tools out there. So if you're afraid for whatever reason, or you haven't explored ChatGPT yet, this can be part of your 2025 resolution because it is available and people are using it. So why would you hold yourself back? It's not cheating when you're using it to help craft things such as what we're describing. That's the second one. We had the recruiter. Oh, recruiters. So recruiters, and that's another form of getting that relationship going in. So now that you've got to the interview, and we can talk more about crafting that CV, but I think using ChatGPT and really making sure that you have a story of why you are uniquely positioned and not just a list is where you want to be. So you've gotten to the interview. Before that date, and I'm not talking a day before, usually they give you a couple of days, maybe a week before, prepare. Research the organization, research the position. If you can, and it doesn't feel, and it's not inappropriate for whatever reason, I would also try to find the supervisors and other leaders who might be a part of that position. And I would try to follow them or at least connect with them on the various social media platforms where they are. You can observe them at a distance. If you go on LinkedIn and look, then depending on how often they check who's checked, they might know. So you have to be strategic and think about Is that something that would help you, or that might be backfiring? I don't know. And I want you to be very situationally aware and not take everything that I ever say as a blanket recommendation, no matter what. We have to be wise, but we do have to also be strategic. So getting more research is fantastic. For example, I had one of my new mentoring college students today, when we were doing our exploration first call, he quoted me back on something that I had written about previously. And I thought, this guy has done his research. This guy has read enough. And I didn't think that he was reading from a script. I think he'd actually absorbed some things and was repeating me. It was fantastic. And people like that.
Yeah.
You repeat back something about a win or an award that the company has received, or the department where you might be working at received, or a promotion that you saw on LinkedIn of somebody else in the organization that you might be a team member with. I mean, this stops people in their tracks. Your purposeful humaning up is going to amplify you and accelerate your opportunities. So prepare, prepare, prepare. Don't, I think, lead with a negative story. If there's an activist shareholder that you've read about, or you realize that the stock market's plunged, or there's been some legislation that's caused there to be things, know it in case it is applicable. But I don't, unless it's for sure not going to come off know-it-all or combative, be aware of when to put that in. It might be something to say, what's the forecast look in the light of these recent news developments? You want to be news aware, but not a hacker.
Yes.
The way I would look at it, in terms of, people want to imagine, they want to get diverse and different perspectives into an organization. They also want to feel that they can work alongside you. So there's a balance there as well. So your research and your preparation is key. In the interview itself, if you're asked, and there are a lot of sometimes series of interviews, if you get to a place where you're asked to give a presentation, as one of my clients just did last week for a new opportunity in a new organization, his presentation, it was supposed to follow a particular arc, talking about personality, processes, projects, and then potential. The first draft was very text heavy. Now imagine when you are in a virtual setting, as most people are when they're doing interviews these days with big companies in particular, when you go on that screen to show your slides, you become tiny and your slides start to dominate. If your slides are text heavy and you're talking about a particular project, but the fifth point on that slide is talking about the savings or the costs or whatever, people's eyes are scanning and not listening to you, and they're reading ahead. So I would control your presentation, unless you've been told you can only have 4 slides. I would animate in that slide and build the points as you're talking about them. I also encourage, if you are going to talk about how you're a big fan of horse racing, or what are your hobbies? You're a painter and you happen to have a gallery showing, put a picture up, because it connects in a different way. Now, you don't want to be heavy on the personal and not enough on the professional, but it depends on what you're being asked. So when presentations come around, I want you to be professional, and you'd rather err on the side of less is more. But certainly those presentations that I've seen from senior managers to junior people, when they use a little what's the word, judicious, don't go crazy, but a little bit of photos or graphics to help illustrate what would be pretty much a book, it does help them separate themselves from the pack, which is the goal.
And you know what? Pictures are probably simple enough, aren't they? Instead of lots of text and stuff,
That's it. Well, if you're going to talk about a project, you can name the project, you can name the savings, You can have a photo that illustrates it. If you're talking about how you're, like I said, a fan of cooking and people, I don't know,
Fishing.
yeah,
Fishing.
fishing. Then there can be a picture. If there's a picture of you and your child catching a fish, why not? I mean, think about, be wise as always. Think about who your audience is. Think about what place you are in the process. But be comfortable to bring some of you into that, because they're hiring the person as well as all your capabilities and your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's say you do go, this is little people might resonate, it might resonate with people. This, like I've heard before, I remember I read Brian's book, and it said he'd been passed up for promotional several times. So have you any advice for someone who really knows they're ideal for the job, but then they don't get it? Have you any advice for them?
Yes, this is Brian Kennedy, right? This is his book called the Bank. What's it called? The Banker. What's it called? I can't remember the name of the book, because I would like to give a shout out for it right now.
Find it now.
I'll have it down in my. If you think of it, will you put it out on somewhere on the
Bulletproof Banker?
Yes, the Bulletproof Banker. Fantastic. Exactly. And the idea here was that he had been in an organization and doing incredibly well, and was also getting overlooked. And only until, sadly, that manager who had overlooked him was ill with cancer did that manager finally reveal, you were so valuable, I didn't want to let you go. Now, that is a pity, because first of all, the manager knew that he had done wrong, or else he wouldn't have had this deathbed confession, right? And also, it's a real pity because he didn't trust the process or trust his organization to find him another worthy candidate. So in the Brian situation, he learned from it in different ways, but unfortunately he was not able to advance his career during that time. And he actually ended up going elsewhere. So let's think about, if you're in a situation and it hasn't gotten to the deathbed confessional stage, which I hope it doesn't, there needs to be some heartfelt conversations, and don't shy away from, I'm open to the feedback of what I needed to do to achieve that. What more can I do? And ask additional questions. If you have, straightforward communications is a two-way street. Just because you're asking honest questions doesn't always mean that just because a person is in a managerial or supervisor position, they are going to be giving you straightforward, candid answers. People have egos. There's politicking. We do not work in the world we would like it to be. We work in the world that it is. So use your instinct. Check your gut. If you are asking straightforward questions and open to the candid responses, and you feel that it's cagey or it's sounding like, go to a second source. Don't throw that person under the bus, but try to verify what that rationale is. If someone sets a behavior or identifies something as something that you could change, make a date to milestone that change. Super. I'm going to go get a coach. I'm going to take this course. I'm going to demonstrate whatever it is I'm changing. If they give you something concrete, then put that milestone date for checking on it to get their buy-in. If they waffle on it, start to make your little evaluation on where are they with you on this journey. Not every manager wants you to succeed. And sometimes we sit in a situation longer than we should, hoping that the mindset of that person's going to change, the political environment's going to change, somebody's going to die of cancer. No, I'm kidding. That's no. Something's going to happen. But we need to be wise. And we need to, I heard this fantastic story one time from Gloria Steinem. She's one of the American leading advocates for feminism, has written a number of books. She's in her 80s, I think now. Amazing woman. And I heard her speak a few years back, and here's the line. If it looks like a duck and it smells like a duck and it feels like a pig, it's a pig.
Okay.
You all thought you knew where that was going, right? It's like, oh yeah, I know that story, but
Yeah.
it's different. So if somebody is telling you something and they're giving you the right words, but your gut is checking in a different direction, you don't have to call them a pig, obviously, but you do have to go, you know what? Why are the pieces not adding up?
Yeah. Well, it's like Judge Judy always says, if it's not making sense, then it's not true, you know.
Well,
It's
so we can take Judge Judy or Gloria Steinem. You can take the advice wherever you want, but folks, you are in your boat. Your boat is in the river of your career. Some of us sit in our boats and we just let the tide take us, and we might hit the bank, we might go forward a little bit, but I guarantee if you sit up in that boat and you look around, other people are actively making paddles or finding other people that can help them craft a motor. And most people do not get to where they go on their own, alone, without a goal, which I'm using goals and relationships and research and preparation as those tools that help that boat maneuver in a more purposeful way. So don't wait for the opportunity to fall in your lap. Do not, if you're into manifesting, manifest all you want and do some actions alongside. You can't put a rose quartz under your pillow and expect that everything is going to sort itself out on its own. Do some actions, make a difference. Don't sit back and think that it's enough that you're getting the job done, whatever the job is. Because if you're in a big enough organization where multiple people are doing your job, but they're also attending the team building, they're looking up with a smiley face and saying, "Hey, Sam, how was your weekend?" I'm not talking about people burning the midnight oil all the time, because I think that's a real recipe for burnout as well. You do have to protect your mental health and your self-care and your guardrails, but attitude. And I know there's this old quiet quitting thing where people are, it's okay to just do your job. And it is okay just to do your job. And also know that if someone is just doing their job and they're also wanting to advance to a different position regionally, upward, laterally, and they're making a different levels of effort, that person's going to get it. So please don't resent that person. If you're satisfied with just doing your job, that's fantastic. And it comes with that satisfaction of just doing your job. And some people don't need to make more money or get that promotion or go for more team, and that's fine. Different people are suited for all sorts of different things. But if you tell yourself you're ambitious and you want X, what are you doing to go get it?
absolutely. I mean, it's like, even, in the online world, you'd see people going, oh, who do they think they are? But usually they're people who actually aren't doing anything and they're just sitting at home giving out about other people. So if you're actually, if you want to get results, yeah, even getting coaching with someone like yourself, it's like, sometimes people think, well, I don't need a coach. I can do this on my own. But, all of these things you mentioned, identifying advocates, helping your presentation, if you have to do a presentation, what more can I do? Like you've mentioned all those things, referrals, like they're all things that you can learn those skills, can you?
Absolutely. Nobody, I don't believe there's any true extrovert out there. I don't believe there's any true person that was born that suddenly knows how to network and ask for advice and build relationships and be open to honest feedback and take action to make a personal development plan or to incrementally track their success or to be open to course correcting patterns they might have developed that are not serving them, or things that they were doing well that they've backslid on. Case in point, here's another thing I can openly share. I gave a presentation to a global group of women last year through an organization that I'd never been in front of before. And it was about confidence and communicating with purpose and all these kinds of things. And the feedback came right towards the end of the holidays from the organizer. And I got quite a few, wow, this was really great, really positive sorts of things. I can use this. And I also got, that was too American. That's not the way that I could ever behave. I got pushback on things. And folks, I am human like all of us. We don't like to think that we didn't hit the mark. We don't like to think people didn't like us. So my initial response, this is critical, was a human one. I mean, I was like defensive, like, well, but I didn't write that. Okay, you're allowed to feel. You're not allowed to necessarily express. We don't have to express every opinion we have. Being authentic does not mean saying everything to anyone every time. So I sat with it. And I might have been the next day. I didn't sit with it too long because being responsive is part of what I do. And I wrote back. And by the way, I had ChatGPT help me on this one to get the emotions out and say, here's what I received. Here's what I want, how I want to respond. And I made the ChatGPT didn't tell me this. This one I did. I said to her, I want to make it up. I want to offer a free follow-up session if you think there'd be an audience for it on, I don't know what, but let's follow up after the holidays. And I look forward to speaking with you again. And you guys, today was the day I had my call with her. And she said, I was blown away that you were humble enough and that you were open enough to the feedback. I almost didn't share with you the negative feedback because I thought, well, I mean, you know, she did it, we paid it. Well, it was largely well received. And yet here was an incredible learning opportunity. So what we have decided to do, her idea, is let's use this experience as a sharing tool to remind ourselves. First of all, I have been told over the years is too American. I knew that. I should have spent more time saying situational awareness. These are not mandatory things to do. These are other things to put in your toolkit. If you are in a global organization, there are times when these tools might serve you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I forgot to disarm the challenge. I backslid. I have done that scene setting before. I had a shorter amount of time, and so I kind of just went, ta-da, jazz hands, here's all the great, fabulous things I want to share with you. But you need to get that rapport first and disarm the objections, the challenges. And had I said, well, they just don't get it. Really, these are all just perfect things that you could be able to use. They should have known that. That would have been a disconnect for me in that relationship. And when you think about advancing your career, I'm not brand new in my career, but I can continue to learn.
Yep.
I can recheck my humility. If you are out there right now going, this is all basic stuff. I already know this stuff. I already have executive presence. I would encourage you to get some honest feedback, because most of us can be reminded and think about how we can make more effective connections and be open to that feedback to get it. So it's a lifelong learning process, this idea of progressing our career. And career doesn't end until we're gone. I don't think the word career is really what we want. We want, how do we continue to progress our lives and our relationships? Because the way we talk about ourselves, the way we research other people, the way we're proactive to new meetings of other people, that's life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Kareem asks, is ChatGPT useful in drafting resumes? If so, is it
I have
encouraged?
never used it for a resume because I haven't written a resume for myself in a long time. But I'm sure I do have used it. If you Google AI proposal writers or AI resume writers, there are loads of them out there. I don't know if ChatGPT has its own little template for them, but I am positive it's out there. So the short answer is yes. The more in-depth and important answer for you, though, is ChatGPT is only a tool. You have to be critically thinking enough to say,
Yeah.
does it capture how I speak? Is it accurate? Because be aware, sometimes they can finesse things. You go, wait, actually, that's not accurate. They just added, I don't know, a couple of years, or they just put me in New York and I was actually in Newark. I mean, these
Yeah.
seriously, oh, they just gave me an elevated title. It's not actually accurate. So use it, explore with it. What I love about it is you can cherry pick. Oh, that phrase is good. I think that I would never have described myself that way. Or the takeaway from that project that I did, that outcome sounds really elevated, and that's powerful. And it's also accurate. You don't want glib at the sake of accuracy. So I absolutely would, and if it has different ways to lay things out, absolutely would try to use that. Here's a great question. Voluntary work, pro bono work now requires a career attitude and approach. Of course it does. Of course it does. Because once again, if you are, I do volunteer work. I'm sure many of us volunteer that in of itself is a body of work.
Yeah.
And you can leverage, let's say you're out for a while and you're doing pro bono work, or you are doing pro bono work as part of your whole package of the portfolio of things that you offer. Don't forget to omit that. Or don't accidentally omit that. Don't forget to include that. Excuse me. And I hope that's what you're driving at, Neil, if that's the point. And it's great to see you too, by the way. I really appreciate that.
I think, yeah, he's totally right. That's what he's saying. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Because, yeah, I mean, it's like, there are projects, like I'm in the Rotary in Wexford, and there are projects that we do, and you need to put a proposal together. You need to, like, it's the same
Yeah,
stuff. And you have to be good with people because you're going to work with other people. So all of that stuff ties in. Yeah.
absolutely. And when we're doing pro bono work, that kind of work potentially at some point could also, in another capacity, the same organization might get a budget, and because you were so professional about it, now they want to make sure and compensate you in some way, or you're leveraging what you did in a volunteer capacity and showing how applicable it is to a potential job prospect or project consultation project. So
Yeah.
make sure that you're not discounting things that you are doing. I already talked about the baby track and things like that, where it's very obvious that you're not working, but boy, are you working. As parents, we know this. But you're also, the same thing applies to really anything that you do. If you can think about the story around it and the thinking, collaborative skills that you're using that have application in terms of serving others, products, team building, there's often a professional and career approach to them, and certainly a relevance to them that you can use. We're so much more than we give ourselves credit for a lot of times, because
We forget sometimes, don't we? We forget, like, sometimes, like,
we,
oh, yeah, I do that as well. Oh, yeah.
people talk. My sister was asking me over the holidays, do you journal? And the truth is, I off and on
Yeah.
have. Some years I'm really diligent at it. Some years I do not so much. I always keep lists in notebooks,
Yeah.
and I always do the list and I put the date on it. So and I do keep a lot of my notebooks. So at the very minimum, I can go through back and say February 2022. Wow, here's what I was doing. And so my point is, folks, if you are tracking in some way what you're doing, then you get a couple years down the road, you're floating around that river for a couple of years, and you look over your shoulders like, wow, I've actually accomplished a whole lot more than I had been accumulating in my head. But here it is in writing somewhere, whether it's online or in a notebook or what have you. Every one of my coaching clients, every year, I have a tracker for them. And my company was registered in 2018. I was doing coaching through other means when I was before that, for a couple of years before that. So really I've been active for about 9 years in this. And I just had a colleague in the UK ask me for my best estimate on how many hours I've coached. And there are other factors, but for all my formal engagements, it's almost 3,000 hours. And I never, off the top of my head, would have been able to do that math. And then you suddenly go, wow, that's a talking point. That's a career nugget. And that has a value.
Yeah.
So when you start thinking about all your volunteer work or all your professional organizations like Rotary clubs, that has a value. You're learning networking skills. You're learning from each other. That doesn't necessarily need to be in part of the CV, but I would think that it would.
Okay.
How exciting is this? I hope everyone's more motivated and enthusiastic about where they can take their boat in that river over the next 12 months.
Absolutely. I mean, the tips that you've the gems that you've dropped, the must-haves, putting yourself forward before you're needed, all of that, it's really, really, really insightful and really interesting. Thank you so much. We've actually gone over time, folks. Apologies, Gina, we went over time a little bit, but thank you so much for the comments, Kareem, Lucy, Neil, everybody who joined us, everyone on Twitter, everyone on LinkedIn. We will be doing another one of these next month, so keep an eye on Gina's account for that. And Gina, thank you so much for all those great tips.
Thank you, everyone. You are terrific and you are worthy, and just know that your story matters.
Thank you, Gina. Bye, everybody.